Hello, my name is Andreas Weber. I'm from the Heinrich-Heine-Universität at Dusseldorf in Germany, and I belong to the Cluster of Excellence in Plant Science C++. I would like to present you some of the work that we are doing in the context of the 3 to 4 EU project to re-engineer photosynthesis for sustainable agriculture. Initially, I would like to start out with pointing out that at the time when I was born, in 1960, there were only 3 billion people on the planet. And during that time, for each person on the planet, there were 4,300 square meters to grow produce and crop plants for them. Then in 2014, this is last year, we had already more than 7 billion people on the planet, and for these 7 billion people, we had 2,400 square meters each for growing crop plants. And by the year of 2050, we will be 9 or 10 billion people on the planet, and then for each person, we will have less than 1,600 square meters. On these 1,600 square meters, we need to produce all the food that we need, the food and the feed that we need for our cattle, and there's going to be increasing competition between food production and also the production of energy. So there's a competition between the tank and the plate. Just to give you an idea how much 1,600 square meters is, this is a football field here, and this football field has here in this square 1,600 square meters. This is less than 1/4 of a football field, and this is the amount of land that is available for every person on the planet to grow crops. On these 600 square meters, we can produce right now 2,800 kilocalories per person per day. But if we now consider that the population will grow by the year 2050 to 9 billion people, we will produce only 2,100 calories per person per day on that amount of land. And that means we need to increase production agriculture quite significantly. What I've shown here is the increase in production in agriculture over the last 50 years from 1960 to 2010. And during that time, we had a linear increase in crop production. And if you calculate how much that was per year, this is an increase of 1.7% per year since 1960. By the year 2050, we need to double agricultural production. And if you project what we did over the last 50 years into 2050, we would only achieve 1.5-fold. So the gap is opening, and that means we would have to increase from 1.7% per year to 2.4% increase per year, which is a lot. The issue with increasing crop production is that incorporating CO2 from the atmosphere into plant biomass is very efficient when we have a lot of CO2 molecules in the atmosphere, but our current, and this was the case in the ancient atmosphere more than 3 billion years ago, but our current atmosphere contains a lot of oxygen and very little carbon dioxide, and this makes photosynthesis and incorporation of material into plant biomass less efficient. So this large amount of oxygen in the atmosphere leads to a loss of energy and carbon from plant material. So plants need to distinguish the large amount of oxygen that we have in the atmosphere from the very little amount of CO2, carbon dioxide, that we have in the atmosphere. And this is the process that we want to optimize in 3 to 4. There is 2 types of crop plants. There is C4 plants and there is C3 plants. C4 plants are less confused by the oxygen in the atmosphere, whereas C3 plants are more confused by the oxygen in the atmosphere. Plants such as wheat and rice are C3 plants, which are more sensitive to oxygen, and they produce 8 to 10 tons per hectare, whereas maize is a C4 crop, and this produces 14 tons per hectare. So what we eventually would like to do is to convert C3 crops to C4 crops so that they can produce the same amount of yield that you would already find in corn or sugarcane or similar plants. So the goal of this project is to produce C4 crops that have higher yield with less input, and we want to understand how C4 crops work so that we can use this knowledge to make new C4 crops from C3 crops.